Hey, what's up guys? Today we have a special video where I have the privilege of showing off Columbina early. I'm going to give you guys a rundown on what she does, what to expect from her, my first impressions on the character, her value, and her gameplay, as well as a showcase of Columbina in various different teams. I've tried to strike a balance of a lot of details without it being too much and taking too long, and I will also cover all the details about her kit and how to build her in more detail in the next video, my complete Columbina guide, whereas this one will be more focused on a showcase of her, first impressions, and general information about what she does. All the footage you're seeing was recorded on the creator experience server, so it's subject to change for live release, and I'm obviously very grateful that I get to play Columbina early and share it with you guys. I was also provided with a code for some Primogems that you can redeem in game, which is on screen now and in the description as well. With that said, I want you guys to know that I do stream most nights on Twitch, link in the description if you're interested, and let's now show off Columbina. Alright, so to start things off, let's talk about what Columbina actually does, a brief rundown of her kit before we get into the showcase, and obviously I'll leave all the more complicated details to my complete Columbina guide, which will come out next if you want to learn more. Briefly though, Columbina is a character who revolves around the lunar reactions. In fact, just her presence in your party will convert Electrocharge, Bloom, and Hydrocrystallize into Lunar Charge, Lunar Bloom, and the newly released Lunar Crystallize reactions. While I've covered Lunar Charge and Lunar Bloom in previous videos, Lunar Crystallize is a new lunar reaction that works with Hydro and Geo. This is a reaction that will summon these little construct pillars as you trigger the reaction until you have 3, after which, as you continue to trigger the Lunar Crystallize reaction, these pillars will resonate and do some Lunar Crystallize damage. This is a nice bonus for a lot of Geo teams, and most notably is expected to synergize with another future character, Zibai, but we will talk more about her in a future video. For now, what you need to know though is that Columbina enables all 3 of these lunar reactions and will also increase their damage by up to 7% depending on her max HP. Outside of that, she will also give you a much bigger buff to this lunar reaction damage through her elemental burst, which is a Hydro domain expansion that will summon a lunar domain, and inside of it, all of your party members will deal up to 40% more lunar reaction damage at talent level 10. It will also have an initial hit of Hydro damage, which is okay, but it's mainly used for the lunar reaction damage buffs. While this is nice for the reactions in general, it becomes much more impactful when paired with a lunar reaction damage dealer like Nefer, Flins, Inefa, or Lauma, and very probably Zibai as well. Additionally, inside of Columbina's burst, she will also give a specific and unique buff to all 3 of the lunar reactions. For Lunar Charge and Lunar Bloom, it will basically be more damage, in fact a 33% chance to get either an additional lightning strike for Lunar Charge or just an additional Moondrift hit from your pillars, whereas with Lunar Bloom, Columbina will give you a separate currency of dew called Moonridge Dew, which has a separate maximum capacity and duration from regular Verdant Dew, with the regular Verdant Dew being consumed first. What this means is that as you trigger Lunar Bloom reactions, you will get effectively more dew and have this like reserve of dew being generated or just there as well, and this makes Nefer teams a lot smoother to play, and you can even opt to actually use Lauma's Hold E for more Lunar Bloom damage because you're not worried about kind of stealing all of the Verdant Dew from your Nefer when played together, provided you manage your rotation efficiently. Now, outside of that, Columbina's main ability, I'd say, outside of her like lunar reaction buffs, is going to be her elemental skill. This is an ability that will summon a gravity ring around your active character that will deal AoE Hydro damage even from off field. This ability will deal some Hydro damage once every 2 seconds, with it scaling on her max HP, and so does the damage of her burst, in case you're wondering. This hit will definitely add up. It's decent Hydro application, not the fastest, but good enough, and its personal damage is also quite nice as well. On top of that, it has a very long duration of 25 seconds, and most interestingly, after every 3 hits, meaning once every 6 seconds, Columbina will deal a hit of lunar reaction damage, depending on which lunar reaction you've been triggering the most. If it's Lunar Charge or Lunar Crystallize, you'll deal a hit of AoE, Electro, or Geo damage that is considered Lunar Charge or Lunar Crystallize damage respectively, and if it's Lunar Bloom, you'll fire off 5 hits of Dendro damage that is considered Lunar Bloom damage. So basically, it'll just constantly deal Hydro damage from off field, and then an additional hit of lunar reaction damage every 6 seconds of the lunar reaction that you're triggering the most. Other interesting things to note are that Columbina does have a unique charge attack that can consume Verdant Dew to deal AoE Dendro Lunar Bloom damage, which can make her a viable DPS in some teams, most notably with Lauma. Columbina will also give herself some crit rate through her passive, up to 15%, and she also has a cool overworld exploration ability that people have been calling a local passive, which can revive a character on a long cooldown if they were to die in Nod Cry. And for her kit, that's mostly it. While I'll give my thoughts and first impressions on her in this video as well a bit later, to recap, Columbina will give you 40% lunar reaction damage bonus from her burst, another 7% from a passive, as well as a unique effect inside of her burst domain that will increase the damage of your Lunar Charge and Lunar Crystallize reactions, while also generating more dew for Lunar Bloom. In that sense, she's a character who is tailor-made for these lunar reactions, and honestly, Nod Cry by units in particular, although she does have some synergy with like generic geo carries because she'll give them a new reaction and some other teams, but for the most part, she synergizes the most with these Nod Cry Lunar reaction teams, carries, and even sub DPSs like Columbina and Inefa, as we'll see, can make almost any main DPS have a strong team that they either synergize in or don't, which I'm either more or less a fan of, but we'll save that for a bit later in the video. Lastly, before moving on to a showcase and some of my first impressions on Columbina, for those of you who care about her aesthetic and stuff like that, I did want to highlight, because I do get to play this character early, that her movement does feel a lot more floaty, and I don't know if I want to use the word elegant, but elegant than your average character, as she does float around as she's moving. Her jump is like a little spin thing, and even her normal attacks are kind of her dancing and summoning these hits from the sky that I think is a cute touch if that's something that you like or are interested in. Me personally though, I'm too focused on doing a proper rotation to actually look at animations, but I do think her burst animation is also very sick. All right, now with that out of the way, let's get into a showcase of Columbina in various teams. Now keep in mind that Columbina has so many different teams that we're going to cover and that I'll go into more detail in my guide, but I can't obviously show everything here, so it's just going to be a few of her best teams and other either fun or synergistic ones that I want to show in this section. Now, in order to not make this video too long, what I decided to do is showcase some endgame content, namely the difficulty 5 Fearless Stygian Onslaught, which is the highest difficulty for rewards outside of like Dire, where you get skins, so the most relevant difficulty, as well as some rapid fire showcasing of different teams against world bosses to keep things kind of moving faster than having a full dedicated like 100-second clear for every different team. With that said, my Columbina's build does vary, but in every clip she's either on Prototype Amber or Favonius Codex, two different 4-star weapons, with one exception where I show her off with her signature weapon as a DPS, and I will make that clear. Her artifact set also varies. It's usually going to be Silken Moon Serenade, sometimes it's a new Aubade set, or even Night Sky when she's on field, generally just whatever works best for the team she's in. It's a C0 Columbina, talent level 9 on literally every single character and every ability, C0 5 stars, and yeah, let's just go. All right, so here we go. We're going to start with the Stygian Onslaught, actually against two different bosses. So I'm going to show you guys a premium team of Columbina with Flins, and then another Nefer premium team with Columbina. And I also did clears without their dedicated supports Inefa or Llama. Now, as I'm going to cover in the next section, which I actually recorded before this, sorry to break the fourth wall, but Inefa, I would argue, is more valuable to a Flins team than Columbina, and so is Llama for Nefer. However, Columbina also is a huge upgrade to these teams, and she's available right now. Well, so is Inefa. So I'm trying to show you guys off kind of the premium team of Columbina and Flins, and then also Columbina with Nefer. So both of their premium teams that are now at the top of the meta. This one cleared before I even could finish talking, but basically this enemy does have an Electro Charge or Lunar Charge weak shield, so the content does favor them, and I believe afterwards he has some reduced Electro Res. So overall a good matchup, and as you can see, our Flins team is doing very well. Now, obviously, this is basically the best version of the team you can get, and after we cleared the first one, I did it again, kind of downgrading it from Inefa, the best support here, to Fischl, just another good option. Now here you lose out on Inefa's shielding, so you don't actually have a healer, but you can run Prototype Amber on Columbina, or you can run a more defensive option like a Lanyan or Kuki or something like that, and that's fine as well, or even Yehoda, who came out recently. I almost forgot about her. But yeah, anyways, so here as you can see, our damage, our overall team's damage will be lower. Now Flins is still doing really high numbers, but obviously Fischl does good damage, but not nearly as good as Inefa's, especially when buffed with Columbina, who gives you a lot of lunar reaction damage bonus. Now, as you can see, not much to say. It's going to take, I think, 20 seconds longer to clear this, but still, we did manage to clear it on Fearless difficulty. And while our 5-star characters like Flins are on their signature weapon, Columbina, just for the showcase, I made sure to keep her always on a 4-star weapon with Prototype Amber or Favonius Codex, which I actually found to be the best in that Flins team. Now, here we are doing the other Stygian Onslaught boss. This one is a new one who kind of has a shield that where you have to do lunar damage to it. It's a really annoying boss. I'm not a big fan of these mechanics. But anyways, we're doing Nefer's premium team here, another one of the teams that's at the top of the meta. So right here, we're just going to break this shield. Our damage is inflated. You do more damage to the shield. And I also did this boss with Flins. I don't know if I want to include it in this video because it does take a while, but our time ended up being basically the exact same as the Nefer team. I think it was 1 second slower or faster, but yeah, basically the same. Yeah, so as you can see, something that's really cool with Columbina is that because you get extra Verdant Dew, right? The bonus that she gives you, this allows you to hold your skill on Lauma, as I did right here, I believe, after this burst. I hold my skill on Lauma, consume 3 Verdant Dew, but because I'm generating some and Columbina has kind of 3 special Dew in the backlog, I can still consume 6 with Nefer. In this gameplay, I'm doing some standard dash cancels on my Nefer to get the most value out of her. It's pretty easy, you get the hang of it, and yeah, we're just quick swapping through our team. The last slot is very flexible. Once again, there's no real healer here, but we are on Prototype Amber on Columbina, so that is our quote-unquote healer. Now, the last slot, though, while I am using Nahida, you by no means need her. There's a ton of different options that can be the best or a viable last slot. I did some clears with Kuki, Sucrose, and here I'm using Nahida, and that's what worked for me, so that's why I'm running it. But note that she is not needed at all, just a good last option. Anyways, here we're just doing good damage on Nefer, and I almost died, actually. I guess I didn't dodge properly, but that's another downside of only having Prototype Amber for healing. But I must have messed up a dodge. It's a new enemy, cut me some slack. But yeah, we cleared this in 66 seconds. And in case you're wondering, the Flynn's team did it. The clear I had ready for this video was 67 seconds, but I also did it in 65. That was like my quote-unquote record, I guess. But the whole point of this is just to say that Nefer and Flynn's are both really strong teams. So if you're wondering, you know, which one you should go for, which carry, it's basically up to you. It's your favorite. And there's a few different pros and cons for each, but kind of depends on the team you can build, your artifacts, and which DPS you like more. And obviously for exact like times, do note that a lot of things vary, like how you crit, rotations, and all of that. So I'm not trying to compare times. Even like here, we're doing a Lauma-less Nefer team here. This is why I'm including 2 fights of the same boss. And as you can see, the damage of our Nefer is still good, but obviously less, right? Like there, we're doing like 100 and something K, and our build might have changed slightly, although we're on the same weapon and stuff, but you know, support artifacts and all of that change from team to team. But as you can see, like when we were fighting this enemy and he didn't have a shield, yeah, we're doing like, that's like 134. So Lauma definitely is a big deal. That's all I'm trying to say. Lauma does make a big difference and is your best support for Nefer. But if you don't have her and want to get Columbina for her, Columbina is also a huge upgrade, and eventually you will be able to get Lauma through her rerun whenever it comes. So yeah, this is just a clear that I did of this Stygian Onslaught with Nefer, Columbina, Nahida, and I used Ino C6 as the last slot. Another character that I put on a Favonius weapon who gives you a lot of energy, and then while her base kit is just Hydra application, she has a few constellations that give you some damage bonus. Lunar damage bonus with C6, Elemental Mastery with C1, and so it was a pretty good last slot, it felt like, through my different testing. I also used Sucrose, who was great, and I also used Kuki when I needed a healer, but I felt like the Prototype Amber was fine for me. So this clear did take a bit longer. Here we're doing way higher damage, again, because this shield is something you do more damage to, lunar damage in particular, and then once you break it, the boss takes a bunch of damage. This boss I'm not the biggest fan of. It's very lunar shilly, so you know, we're using a good team to clear it. No Lauma, but still one of the best teams for this boss, and even despite that, we cleared in like 113 seconds, which is a long time, but it's a really difficult boss, and also we did clear it faster with Lauma, as you can see, where lunar damage is really favored. Now, because of these kind of shilly Nodcry mechanics, some of these Nodcry enemies that are weak to specific things like lunar reaction damage, having Columbina on your account can be very valuable to help during Nodcry. Now, while I'll cover in the review next my thoughts on her power level, to kind of spoil it a bit, I do think she's really strong in general, either insane if you have the right teams for her, or just solid, but the exact strength varies. I will say that regardless of that though, inside of Nodcry, during the Nodcry patches against the Nodcry enemies, she will feel even stronger. She will be even stronger because of a lot of the matchups in the end game that favor her, especially when paired with another Nodcry 5-star like Inefa, Lauma, or one of the DPSs, because of, you know, lunar reaction stuff. So anyways, here I went into the Abyss where I got to fight a more normal enemy, because as I said, those enemies kind of have a weakness to the teams we're playing, or at least incentivize you to play them. So here we're just fighting the PMA, a very generic enemy, and as you can see in, I guess, one rotation, he's already at the phase where he kind of becomes immune and splits into parts. Also, this Abyss doesn't have any buff that really benefits Flynn's or Nefer. It's just charge attack damage bonus, but that doesn't really matter because even Nefer's special charge attack does lunar bloom damage, not charge attack damage. So I did this with Nefer also. So you saw me do it with Flynn's. I do it with Nefer. Just use the burst and kind of quick swap on everyone. Then I go Nefer, do 3 dash cancels, do a bunch of damage with my, you know, special charge attacks, which are lunar bloom. He splits here. I cut to, you know, the split being done to save some time. Use all my bursts, hold E on Lauma, use all of my everything. And then as you can see, Nefer just cleans it up very quickly. I'm just hesitating a bit because I don't want to waste a charge attack, but yeah. Okay, so with that endgame stuff kind of out of the way, I will include one more fearless clear of a wheelchair team. Now, something, and this is what we're going to get into, some other teams for Columbina outside of just Flynn's or Nefer. Now, I'm sure there will be Zibai too, but obviously she's not out yet. I haven't played her yet. That'll come in a future video. But for now, here are some other teams that Columbina can work in. Now, before I actually get into a quote-unquote wheelchair or running her with Inefa or Lauma with some other units, I actually wanted to run her with Navia to showcase the new lunar crystallized reaction that she can bring to Geo teams. So with this Geo carry Navia, she's giving you lunar crystallize, which is a bit of bonus damage. It's not going to completely revolutionize revolutionize your damage distribution. Like Navi is still the one carrying with her, elemental skill and stuff, but the extra lunar crystallize definitely add up and are a really nice bonus for teams like this, where I think Columbina feels even more valuable than with just a generic kind of non-Nodcry team. Now here's a team with both Inefa and Llama, actually with Nevalette, which I actually am quite fond of. It's kind of a lot of characters doing a lot of damage. Nevalette has so many different teams that this is just one other option, where Columbina works instead of Farina if you have her, where you kind of do a lot of everything. You get some lunar blooms, which turn into hyper bloom through Inefa. You get lunar charge damage and Nevalette personal damage as well. My builds could have probably been slightly more optimized Inefa wise, but still we clear that very fast. And it's just to show you like a proof of concept of these teams. Here is Chlorint being paired with Columbina and Inefa. And here I want to add this. This is where this core, this duo of Columbina and Inefa works incredibly well. And you'll even see me run a Stygian Onslaught clear coming up later with just Columbina and Inefa and Sucrose, 3 units, because of how broken Columbina and Inefa are together. And Columbina and Llama are also great together in case you're wondering. But yeah, here the last slot is very flexible, and even the main carry is very flexible. You can run so many different electros. Raiden works well too. You can use a pyro carry, you can use a hydro carry, you can use a Nemo, an on-field driver. There's really so much you can do with the Columbina Inefa duo. So Chlorine cleared this in like 1 rotation. Again, we're just fighting a random enemy, the Knuckle Duckle. He's a pretty fun boss. He just sits there, so very easy to test stuff on. Here I used Waruzon, Wario, Wander and Faruzon. And here you'll notice, okay, it's mostly the off-field characters doing the damage more so than Wander, but hey, if you want to play your favorite character and that's Wander, then here is a team you can run. Now, a note, I did keep my Wander on a DPS set, but it probably is optimal to give him Verdescent Venerer here and give Faruzon a different support set like Silken Moon Serenade, and then go an offensive set on Columbina or a different support set on Faruzon. But yeah, I wanted my Wander to deal damage, so what I did is I ended up giving him the Night Sky set, which you actually can run in any lunar reaction focused team, even if the on-field character isn't the one triggering them or isn't even from Nodcry at all. It's kind of like Marie-Chaussée in Farina teams. Well, if you're playing Columbina Inefa or any team that's triggering these lunar reactions consistently, then the way the Night Sky set effect works is that the character equipping it, if they're on field, which in this case is Arlecchino, and in the last case was Wander, will get the full crit rate from the 4-piece effect. So that's the set I was running here, and it worked wonderfully. Now, the Arlecchino team, this is just an example of a kind of overvape team, lunar overvape, I guess. And we were vaporizing with Arlecchino. As you can see, the big hits do get some vaporizes. The high drop time was pretty good. I lost it there, but then I got it back, so it was okay. But yeah, it was just a test team with Bennett as the last slot to give Arlecchino more damage, but you can also run a kind of team-wide buffing support there too, and even a different carry. All right, now to continue this, I recorded a clear with, or I guess a boss fight with a bunch of supports, kind of to show off the core of Columbina Inefa, but throw some other sub DPS in there and just quick swap. And even this worked really well. Running Durin in the dark mode and Chilonin to give us Res Shred. Here, a ton of units are doing a ton of damage, a ton of reactions are being procced as well. Chilonin's on Instructor to give the team EM. And as you can see, we're getting some big vaporizes from Durin. Lunar charge damage as well, 93k there. And, Columbina, Inefa, and Durin are all doing great damage as we're quick swapping around. Here is the one clip where I put Columbina on her signature to show her off as a main DPS, where she works surprisingly well, genuinely a strong carry, especially if you have Llama and you don't have someone like Nefer available. I put her on her signature because, number one, it's really good for her carry mode, better than just as a support. And also, I don't have a great weapon for her other than her signature or Sacrificial Jade, but because of my build, I'd be overcapping on like the entire crit rate, so I felt like it would be doing her an injustice to show that. With that said, note I'm also not animation canceling my charge attacks. You can actually do them faster, but more on that in my guide, where I will cover that. For now though, as you can see, solid DPS here. As I said, she has her signature, and I am using Llama and Inefa, but if you have Llama, you can kind of just play whatever you have with her, and even like a Nilu team will work. Again, I want to primarily showcase a support Columbina though, and here to show off how strong the Columbina Inefa duo is, we are fighting the difficulty 5 Fearless Stygian Onslaught boss, where you want Electro Charge or Lunar Charge to break the shield. So this team is favored, but we're doing it with just Sucrose and no last slot. Here, all the characters are buffing the team significantly. Both Columbina and Inefa will give you some lunar damage bonus. Inefa also gives you a ton of EM and has great personal damage. Columbina gives more buffs and has good personal damage as well. And then Sucrose will give you Verdescent Venerer, the Res Shred through that, as well as Elemental Mastery shared to the whole team. And also just being, a great character in general. Being able to apply a ton of Anemo, constantly swirl everything, and Sucrose in general just gives you a lot of stuff. I'm on Wandering Evanstar here. I'm just kind of mashing my normal attacks, swirling everything, and doing a lot of damage through Columbina and Inefa. This is just a way to kind of show how good this duo works, with obviously, you know, a real team performing better than this, but even just with these 3 units, we were capable of clearing the Fearless Stygian Onslaught. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Columbina and Inefa, if you have them, are an incredible duo, and even with just these 3 units and a suboptimal rotation, I'd say, I cleared in 75 seconds. And so yeah, I hope I got to show you guys some teams with Columbina. I still have some more to test and record, but this has taken so much time that I want to leave it here. Columbina can work as a generic Hydro, even in some other teams I didn't show, like with Skirk and stuff, but her main role will be in these teams that are focused around Lunar reactions and the new Nodcry carries or sub DPSs. Now, with the showcase out of the way, here are my first impressions of Columbina, how strong I think she is, if she's worth pulling, and just overall my thoughts on her as a character. Now, obviously, while I will go into more detail in my complete guide, for now, here is what I think. Firstly, Columbina is a character who, as a whole, is made for Lunar reactions and Lunar reaction carries. She is someone who elevates the Nodcry carries like Flynn's and Nefer, and almost assuredly Zibai too, but I haven't had the chance to play her yet, so we'll cover that when she's out, to sort of the new meta DPS standard. While I don't want to go into exact numbers before a character is out, it does seem through early math that has been done that the premium teams for these Nodcry carries are going to be among the strongest in the game, basically the strongest at a standard level, alongside Maoika's optimized combos that can potentially be slightly better on paper, but these new teams are not only much easier to play, but also will have better matchups against a lot of the Nodcry enemies that have annoying mechanics and weaknesses to Lunar reactions. And so while Maoika is definitely still broken, I'm not trying to make the focus of this video comparing carries. As far as standard gameplay goes, without like a super crazy optimized combo, the new Nodcry teams are going to be the new DPS standard and the best teams in the game. Columbina is therefore a meta upgrade, but a lot of her kit does give you very specific buffs. What I mean by this is, as we saw earlier, she gives Lunar reactions a 40% buff with her burst plus another 7% through her passive, as well as also giving you another reaction specific buff for all 3 of the Lunar reactions. And these buffs, while they are really nice, are obviously going to be the most impactful if you have Nodcry characters that you plan on playing. Now, even in other teams, there can be some uses here because of the fact that she converts regular reactions into Lunar reactions, namely Electrocharge, Bloom, and Hydrocrystallize, but this oftentimes ends up being not the biggest deal. What I mean by this is, first of all, Lunar Charge isn't always a strict damage upgrade compared to Electrocharge, but it is nice for crit-focused carries because Lunar Charge does scale with crit, so it's a nice bonus, but not like game-changing. Lunar Bloom does nothing unless you have characters that can make use of it, which are namely Llama, Nefer, and Columbina can too through her charge attacks, but this is mainly relevant when paired with Llama. Obviously, it's mainly great for the quality of life that it gives Nefer, making her feel a lot smoother to play, as the Verdant Dew generation will be a lot less annoying to wait for. Lunar Crystallize, on the other hand, is, I'd say, the most unique one because it also works for existing Geo carries, turning a useless reaction, Hydrocrystallize, into a bit of bonus damage for existing Geo carries like Navia, Ito, or Noelle. While this won't completely redefine the characters, it does give them a more meta-relevant team, like for example running Farina, Columbina, Shilonen with Navia or something like that, and it does feel quite nice to have a Geo reaction that does something. Outside of that, Columbina also has synergy with the Nodcry supports or sub DPSs that is something that I can't understate. In fact, while she works really well with Llama, and she can even be a solid on-field main DPS because of the fact that she can Lunar Bloom with her charge attacks and Llama will buff that, on top of the fact that you can run some other teams with like Nilu or certain Hydro or Dendro on-fielders outside of just Nefer, who obviously will be the best option. Inefa is a character whose synergy I want to highlight even more, who can effectively wheelchair almost any carry into relevancy. Now, there's an aspect of this that I like and an aspect of this that I dislike, so let me explain. In fact, Inefa and Columbina together will deal an incredible amount of off-field damage. Columbina will buff your Lunar Charge damage so much and therefore buff not just your reaction but also Inefa's damage by a ton, and Columbina also has, if it wasn't clear through the showcase, quite considerable off-field damage too. While she gives you some buffs, something that you feel the most out of her is just the sheer amount of off-field damage she can give you as a nice bonus on top of applying Hydro. That paired with her Lunar buffs and paired with Inefa's strong damage as well, and Inefa also can increase your damage through her talents and potentially weapon, make it to where you have such a powerful off-field sub DPS duo that can just on their own carry almost any team to meta relevancy or at least a high enough DPS. Now, certain characters can synergize really well with Llama and Columbina. This is obviously someone like Flynn's, who is an incredible carry that synergizes really well with them, and you'll have a team that deals a lot of damage through multiple different units, especially with Sucrose buffing them all up as the last slot, but also just being a good DPS too. But outside of just Flynn's, Inefa and Columbina can work with virtually any on-fielder. The most relevant ones are going to be good on-field drivers, either an Anemo driver, think of someone like Aoife, Sucrose, or Wanderer, an Electro driver like Raiden, Veressa, Chlorind, or basically anyone. And the same can be said with like Hydro units like Nevalette, or even Pyro units like Hu Tao that can make use of the Hydro to vaporize and the Electro to get Lunar charge at the same time. And a lot of these teams can end up doing a really high and impressive amount of damage, as was shown in the showcase earlier. Now, what I like about this is that it allows you to play kind of your favorite characters in more relevant teams, in stronger teams, I guess. But what I will say I dislike is that in those teams, a lot of the times it will feel like the on-field character almost doesn't matter if you're playing someone who doesn't have good synergy with them and they're just getting carried by their off-fielders. They're not really giving you a lot of personal buffs because of the fact that I'd say Columbina and Inefa are kind of more of a selfish duo than, for example, a support that buffs your team like Chevris or even Farina, because of the fact that they're doing a lot of damage and buffing themselves, not really your on-field Yoimiya. Because while Columbina does give you a lot of Lunar buffs, that obviously only applies to your Lunar reactions, Lunar damage, and the other Nodcry carries that also do that type of damage, and not just the generic character you're playing on-field in their new team. And so it does feel more like a quote-unquote wheelchair than a lot of the other duos that can carry more outdated units. With that said, it is still nice that that exists, and it makes it to where if you have Inefa, then Columbina is going to be a great addition to your account in almost any team. Outside of that, and something that I like more, is the on-fielders that can apply their element, drive the team, and have some synergy, like some of the characters I mentioned, where it won't feel quote-unquote bad, and even if a lot of the damage is coming from outside of your on-field character, they are providing something of value by spamming normal attacks, maybe swirling, applying their element, and maybe even dealing good damage as well, like is the case with someone like Nevalette. Now, obviously, for a lot of these characters, there still are other teams that work, and I'd say for non-Nodcry characters, Columbina's pull value goes down, whereas with Nodcry carries or even sub DPSs, it goes up tremendously. For those of you wondering if you should get her and if she's a must pull, I'd say that she definitely is a meta upgrade to the existing Nodcry characters and brings them to the top of the meta. While if you're playing Flynn's or Nefer, I'd still recommend their dedicated support as a bigger upgrade if you're just gonna get one character. So Inefa for Flynn's or Lauma for Nefer. Columbina is definitely the next character you should get for them, as she will take their team to another level. It will also probably be a similar case when it comes to Zibai, and she also works really well with Inefa, with almost anyone else as we saw, and can work very well with Lauma too, where even just as a carry on field, if you have Lauma, she can already be a really strong carry, one of the best on her own, being a bit behind Nefer, sure, but a great alternative if you don't have her. Now, with that said, if you don't have any existing Nodcry character, then her value pull-wise definitely goes down. Obviously, if you just like her, enjoy her playstyle, character, or want to get her, then by all means go ahead, but do not feel pressured to or forced to, as I don't think she's as versatile of a buffer as universal of one, unless you already have a Nodcry character like Inefa, Lauma, or one of the carries. She still will work in a lot of teams as a fine Hydro option as we saw, and she can even work in like a Skirk team, right? But I obviously wouldn't go out of your way to pull her for someone like Skirk, but it is a thing you can do if you just like the character and want her. And do note that right now, because we are in Nodcry, there's a lot of kind of chill mechanics, I guess, a lot of enemies that are weak to Lunar reactions, Lunar damage, and stuff like that, where Columbina does gain value there as well. So her exact value depends. I'd say she's incredibly powerful for the Nodcry focused teams, a genuinely amazing upgrade to Flynn's teams, Nefer teams, probably Zibai too, and obviously Inefa and Lauma as well, whereas without them, she's just kind of good, but not insane, not nearly as valuable, and this is when I really would start recommending her, when you either already have a good Nodcry carry or sub DPS that could use Columbina as an addition, or if you plan on getting them either on their next rerun, or even Zibai, who's coming out next half, something like that, where you'll have a really strong team, another unit at least that synergizes really well with Columbina, like even Inefa, who can be played in so many different teams. I also wanted to mention somewhere that there is a chance that we get future Lunar reactions, and while this is obviously very uncertain, if it does happen, I'm sure they'll be added retroactively to Columbina's kit, allowing her to buff and enable them, so there could be some future value there, but that's purely speculation. I do also want to add that Columbina has a really good free-to-play option with Prototype Amber that can help alleviate her high energy needs, which is another positive I wanted to mention, but again, more on that in my complete guide coming out next. Lastly, I do want to say that the level she's raising all of these Nodcry characters, I hope is the new ceiling of the region and not the new floor, like DPS ceiling as in this is as high as it gets and not it's gonna keep getting higher. But I do suspect because she's the moon goddess and kind of the Archon, she is made to raise the level of these characters kind of like Mawika did in the past and kind of Farina before her, but in a very different way. Overall though, I'm very excited for Columbina. I'm glad I got to play her before she came out. I hope you are too. Again though, be wary with your Primogems, be smart with them, I guess best is what I want to say. She is incredibly powerful in the right teams, but not every account needs her. If you don't have a Nodcry character or a team that can use her well, you might be able to make her work. She can still be viable because she does do, you know, Hydro off-field damage, Hydro application, and Lunar reactions, but she won't be as needed or as valuable as she is when paired with another Nodcry 5-star, where her value can genuinely be absolutely insane, and she can feel completely broken in those teams. So yeah, there's a bit of a duality there that I wanted to highlight, because her exact pull value does vary drastically from account to account. And as always, never feel like a character is a must pull. Once again, I'm very happy I got to play on the creator experience server early and give you guys a code for some Primogems. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for my complete guide coming out soon. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.